Good morning. How's everybody doing? Whoa. The sound system works pretty good even with the mask, doesn't it? Everybody have a good time last night? Yeah, excellent. Did anybody get left behind at the Clark's house? I know he didn't want anybody left behind, so everybody here? Awesome.
I had 3 people sleeping in my guest room there. So you guys might want to go round them up later. They're still asleep.
Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Peterson. I work in the Strategic Communications Office here at the Air Force Academy, and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's Senior Leader Panel. It's great to see all of you here. You're in for a real treat. Right here next to me and down in the front row, we have our senior leaders from the Air Force Academy, and if you look in the back there, you got the phone a friend row, all the subject matter experts who are here to answer your really tough questions. So we'll be ready for that. Right now, though, I'd like to introduce our 21st Superintendent of the Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General Richard M. Clark. General Clark directs a 4-year regimen of military training, academics, athletics, and character.
You're good, Mike.
I'm good? Okay, sir.
We're good.
Just trying to help out, sir.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Can you hear me okay? I'm gonna keep my mask up, but I'll just kind of do like this so I can prevent COVID from getting on you, but we'll just talk like that. But I just want to say first, thank you for being here. Thank you for being at our house last night. We had a great time, all of us did, and having you there was a real treat for us. But thanks for making the trip here, because it says something about what you feel about this school, our academy, our mission, and your role in us getting it done is vital. So thank you for coming here to be informed and to understand what's really going on here, especially right now, because we are in a very interesting time, not just for our military and our academy, but for our country. So I'll just say thank you for that. We have all of our experts here, of course, our leadership and the people that really make it happen. And so I'm just going to give you a few words, and I'm going to turn it over to them for just a couple minutes. But what we really want is to answer your questions. And I'll just ask you, if you have questions, please ask them. You know, don't be shy. We're all here. We're all family. And that's what this time is all about. So just covering down on sort of the last year or two, last couple of years as we've gone through COVID, especially since you weren't here last year because of COVID, a lot has gone on. But the real priorities, and I just want to lay those out for us going in. And the first one is our prime directive. It's the priority that we always have, we always will have here at the Air Force Academy, and that's to develop leaders of character for our Air Force and our Space Force. And if we don't do that, then we're just like any other university, but we're not, and you know that. And so that will always be number one. And when we talk about what a leader of character is, in our view, there's 3 qualities that a leader of character has to display. And the first one is to live honorably, in accordance with our core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. But living honorably, not just as an officer, but as a person, as a man or a woman in their lives. And we want them to leave here with that as their hallmark. So living honorably. The next one, is to lift others, to lift their teammates to be their best possible selves, their wingmen, their roommates, their teammates, everybody that they come into contact with, to lift them up so that they can perform to their absolute best. And we need that from them when they get into the force and they are leading our Air Force and Space Force, to bring their teams up to that level of excellence that we need to win as a country. And then the last thing is to elevate performance towards a common and noble cause. And elevating performance really does speak to excellence in all we do, but more what it speaks to is elevating performance to support and defend our Constitution. And that's why we're here, and that is the bottom line for us. It's the oath that we all take. It's the thing that binds us all together. So when we talk about a leader of character, live honorably, lift others, elevate performance. That's our prime directive for our cadets when they leave here. So that's the first one, develop leaders of character, first priority. The second priority is to defeat COVID-19. And I will tell you that this team, the folks in the back, have been absolutely amazing. in getting our mission done despite this global pandemic. And it's probably the toughest time that we're coming out of that our academy has ever been in. So it's been pretty remarkable. Our first priority there, though, was the safety and health of our cadets, our faculty, our staff, our coaches, our Air Base wing, and everybody involved in this organization, that they were safe from COVID. And we went to great measures. Our pandemic math team helped us with data-driven decisions, and they did an amazing job. But I will say that our cadets, our staff and faculty went through hard times. I mean, we were locked down. We were quarantined, isolated. We went through enormous testing regimens. Now we're going through vaccinations. It has been pretty trying times, but we have succeeded in our mission despite that. And the MEs are going to talk a little bit about the successes that they had over the last year or two given COVID, but you'll see that we didn't miss a beat, and we kept on pressing, but it was tough. So defeating COVID was our second priority. The third priority is another one that is enduring, but one that we've been emphasizing lately, especially with the dean and some things that she's doing, but an overall institutional effort is to prepare our leaders to win in future conflict. And if you look at our national security strategy, it's very clear that our goal is to win in strategic competition and to better position the United States of America, not just 5 years from now, but 15 or 25 years on the global stage, so that we're ready to compete with those competitors, China, Russia, anybody else that might want to challenge the United States. And we have to develop those leaders that are ready to do that, to solve the tough problems, to do things, solve problems that we don't even know about yet. But they need to have the skills, not just knowledge, but skills to handle those tough issues. And that's what these folks up here are preparing your cadets to do, to be ready to fight those conflicts for us. And it may not be an actual hot war, it may be below the line of conflict, but the problems are still there, and they still have to solve them. So we've done some things. We just broke ground on the Madera Cyber Center just a couple weeks ago. We've stood up an Institute for Future Conflict, the dean has, that we're ready to execute. But this is an institutional effort, because it takes a commandant and his team to be able to prepare these cadets to persevere and endure during those tough times, but also to understand how to fight those wars when we get to them, and to have the character and the skills to do it. It takes an athletic director that prepares those cadets for the challenges that they will face physically, and they will face them physically, whether they're behind a console or whether they're out in the in the field with a weapon or in the airplane ready to pickle the bomb. They got to be ready physically to do this. So this is a team effort to prepare our cadets for future conflict. And the last priority is to demonstrate a culture of dignity and respect. And there's been a lot of discussion about things like critical race theory. There's been a lot of discussion about where our country is on some of these very difficult issues. And our cadets need to be ready to deal with that. They need to be making their decisions about how they're going to lead an incredibly diverse country, growing more diverse. Have you guys seen the census results? We're only getting more diverse, and these cadets are going to have to lead our country. And we want to be able to fight with 100% of our country, men, women, people of all ethnicities and races. That's what we need to do what I talked about earlier, win in future conflicts. To be able to stand up as an entire country and defeat our enemies. So a dignified and respectful culture is what we need here at the Air Force Academy, but it's also what we need across our air and space forces, because that's just the culture that we've all grown up in. And to be honest, our country is in a place now that we have to look at that through the lens of our entire country. So those are the areas that we see as the priorities: developing leaders of character, defeating COVID-19, winning in future conflict, and demonstrating that culture of dignity and respect. And there's a lot of issues that we can talk about today, and things like our honor situation that we had. As you guys know, back in March of 2020, when we sent all the cadets home, we had some cadets that compromised their integrity, about 240 or so. And there was a range of different things, some very minor plagiarism, but some very significant collaboration on tests and things in between, using unauthorized websites. We're dealing with that. We're taking a review and a new look at our honor system and how do we develop these young people so that they leave here as the leaders of character that I discussed. So there's a lot of things out there that I think you may want to talk about, but that we're ready to talk about. But I will say that we are taking steps to continue to move our academy to the next level in every realm. But and I'll also say this, I am immensely proud and very impressed with the cadets that we have, with the staff and faculty and coaches that we have. They are the best of the best, and you can take that to the bank. And everything that you read and hear, whether it tells you that or demonstrates that to you or not, you can take it from me. As someone that's just coming out of the field, I mean, I've been in the Air Force now for 35 years. We have the best here, and we are getting the best in our cadets and leaders that are developing them. So I thank you for that. Whether you're a parent who sent your son or daughter here and raised them in the way that you did, or whether you're an AOG president, what your chapter does to help us with those 4 priorities and our overall mission, I just want to tell you thank you for that. So we will keep on doing it. We will keep on making you proud of your academy, and we will be ready to answer your questions here in a few minutes. But right now, what I'd like to do is hand the mic over to my wingman, my right-hand advisor. She is my senior enlisted advisor, our senior enlisted advisor for the entirety of the academy, and a valued member of my team, and we are seen everywhere together. But right now, I'd like to hand over the mic to our command chief, Chief Master Sergeant Sarah Sparks, just to give you some perspective from the senior enlisted side. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction. Again, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Sarah Sparks, and I'm the Command Chief of your Air Force Academy. And we'd like to once again welcome you back to the Academy. It's wonderful to see faces again after not having the ability to do this last year, so thank you for being here. And I'd like to echo the boss's thanks on all that you do for our Academy and our cadets. We could not do what we do without your support, so we thank you for that. And we hope you're enjoying your time here. Well, many of you last night, as I was walking around at the social, looked at my stripes and asked me, what exactly is that star and what do you do here? And so I'd just like to offer just a quick, brief summary on what exactly that I do as the command chief. Primarily, I'm the senior enlisted advisor, as the boss mentioned, to both General Clark and our senior staff on all matters for our cadets and permanent party. But primarily, I focus on our military readiness, morale, quality of life, and professional development of both cadets and our permanent party here. As you all may know, our force is 80% enlisted, and as our cadets prepare to live honorably and go out there and lead in our operational Air Force, my job primarily is to ensure that they're ready to lead that force. And so part of my job is to ensure that they have touch points and understand the capabilities of the force that they're getting ready to lead. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the awesome initiatives that we've had over the last few years to increase their touch points with our enlisted force here. As you know, in our 10th Air Base Wing, our support side, they do everything to support all of our mission elements here and everything that we do. Many of that force is enlisted, so our cadets will have interactions with our security forces at the gates, our medics as they get their dental care and medical care is taken care of. But we also have increased our touch points here at the Academy. So many of you, if you've been a graduate back in the day, you may not have had any exposure to enlisted, but today we have increased that quite a bit, and it's, I think, a pretty awesome opportunity. One of the things that we've done, is, as you know, in each squadron, we have an air officer commanding, our squadron commanders, as well as 2 NCOs. We've increased that just recently to be able to have 2 in every squadron. You guys know them as your Academy military trainers, or your cadets, talk to you a little bit about their AMTs. Those are the NCOs that are on the front lines with them every single day. And so they have an opportunity to interact with them and understand their talents and capabilities. Additionally, we have brought on 5 MTIs last year, in which really help us to build the training in our cadet cadre. They teach our cadets how to train. They help us with our drill and ceremonies. They help us build our summer programs, and they've been a huge asset in mentoring and developing our cadets here. And they really do provide mentorship to all of our permanent party and staff as well. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about our enlisted faculty that we've had the opportunity to bring here to the Academy. And I know our dean may have an additional couple of points to add to this, but we are proud to say that we have 5 enlisted faculty that are in the classroom with your cadets, with the same credentialing as all of the rest of the faculty that we have in our academic department. And what they do is they provide a diverse perspective, a little bit different diverse perspective on the operational experience that our enlisted force can bring. And so that's been a huge positive experience for our cadets, very positive feedback there. So those are just a few of the things that we do here at the Academy to ensure your cadets are being prepared to lead in just a few short years, and some of them in a few short months out in our operational Air Force. We're super excited about what we do. I'm so proud to be part of this leadership team, and I'm proud of what we do here at the Academy. And now it's my pleasure to introduce your Commandant of your United States Air Force Academy, the General Moga.
Thanks, Chief. So I got to meet a lot of you last night, see a few familiar faces. For those of you that I didn't get the chance to talk to, Brigadier General Paul Moga, Commandant of Cadets. I took over last summer, actually the day after graduation. I started, so I'm the new guy. Take everything with a grain of salt. But then just a couple weeks after that, we rolled straight into BCT of 2021 for the class of 2025. And I'll say up front that this last BCT this summer was really good. It was phenomenal. The class of 2025, all 1,113 of them, showed up strong, motivated, and prepared. And the cadre, the upper class that were running BCT, did an absolutely unbelievably good job of getting them up to speed as quickly as possible. We didn't get all 1,113 through basic, but that's not necessarily a departure from the norm. But statistically, we saw about as many as we normally see with regards to cadets that show up and just to get to a certain point and they say, this isn't what I thought I was getting myself into, and I don't want to be here. And then we sent them home. So really good basic training this summer. I will say, as most of you are tracking, it wasn't quite back to normal with regards to how we typically like to run BCT, both first and second. But my objective and I have every intention of next summer for the class of 2026 being a full-up BCT where there's only one trip down to Jacks Valley and one trip back for 10 days instead of doing the split shift. So we've got some work to do to get there, but hopefully next summer is a more traditional-looking basic for the class of 2026, and we're excited to work that over the next few months. So coming out of basic training, I just want to talk to you real quick about my mission as the Commandant and then a few of my priorities. My mission as the Commandant in the Cadet Wing is to build and inspire the next generation of warfighters that are prepared to lead with character. So that's what I focus almost all of my time and effort on, as well as the permanent party. And then just real quick, my priorities coming into the school year. First one is to safely but expeditiously return to a better normal with regards to coming out of COVID. And I say better normal deliberately because we actually learned some things throughout the last year and a half that actually made us more efficient and more effective. So there's no reason to stop doing those things, whether it be taking advantage of opportunities, smart opportunities to do things virtually, spreading yourselves out. So there are some things that we adopted via necessity throughout the last year and a half that we're going to keep doing just because it makes good sense. And one of the reasons that I think, as the superintendent alluded to, we are winning. We have not won, but we are winning the war of attrition against COVID. And one of the reasons behind that is that the vaccination status of our cadet wing is better than any other unit that I'm aware of in the Air Force or any other institution. The cadet wing right now is just shy of 90% fully vaccinated. And in the next 3 to 4 weeks, that'll go up to 97%. I'm not tracking any other place throughout the country as a unit or an organization where you have a 97% vaccination rate. And that will allow us to safely and expeditiously I don't want to say leave COVID behind us because we can't quite get there yet because you never know if something's going to turn around. But my objective is to get the cadets and the cadet wing back to a sense of normalcy, smartly, deliberately, accepting calculated risk, being prepared to reverse if we got it wrong, because I think they've earned it, I think they deserve it, and I think it's important to the cadets to be able to get there. So that's my first priority. Second priority is instilling the warfighter mentality throughout the cadet wing. That is something that is near and dear to my heart. We've got some formal and some informal programs prepped up throughout the academic year. Some of them run by permanent party, some of them run by cadets, some of them facilitated by people we're bringing in from the outside to talk about warfighting across all the career fields in the Air Force and the Space Force, to get the cadets excited about joining the profession of arms and get them as prepared as we can so we usher them out the door and their lieutenants. They're ready to fight and win wars on behalf of the nation. And then my third priority going into the school year is to focus on conduct, standards, and discipline in the interest of focusing on institutional pride. So we've been through a really rough year and a half, and we're getting through it. But as we were making our way, navigating our way through that fight, over time some things degraded inside of the cadet wing. And we need to snap ourselves back to focus on the fact that this is a military institution. Conduct, standards, and discipline are inherent to what we do here. And I also want to get the cadets to embrace the fact that they should be proud to be here. And when they graduate, they should be proud to be from here. So those are some of my efforts that I'm going to focus on throughout the school year, and then we'll get ready for next summer. So with that, I'll stop there, and I'll hand it over to our Dean, General Lieutenant.
Well, it was just 2 years ago that I stood in front of you, and I had Colonel's Eagles on because I was a month and a half from being dean and no idea that a global pandemic was going to hit us. But I want to actually tell you, first of all, our why hasn't changed. We continue to support our USAFA mission to develop leaders of character, and within the Dean of Faculty, we do that by educating and inspiring warrior scholars. We know that to deter and win future conflict requires your sons and daughters to think differently and to have a skill set that is radically different than what I needed and what Max needed in the 90s, what the boss needed in the 80s, and then, on and on from, well, it's all good, sir. Our cadets are different. And they need different challenges. And we are meeting those challenges as well as the challenges that our Air and Space Force needs them to have. In the last 2 years, what are some of the highlights? We've added a data science major. We've added a space warfighting minor. We've added an American Studies minor. We're looking at how do we develop warfighting minors that regardless of academic majors, our cadets know what they are going to be facing and how to face it. We have added our experience and broadened our experiential learning. That, I think, is the hallmark of what sets apart the education that I received versus the education that your sons and daughters are receiving today. They don't just learn things in the classroom. They go out and apply them, and they apply them to solving warfighter problems today. What's the proof of that? We've had 14 patents in the last 3 years. Those are cadets. Those are our faculty. We sent 500 cadets last summer across the world to do research at labs and centers and organizations and companies. The summer before, we sent 400, although most of them were virtual. But they came back with a renewed sense of how what they're learning in the classroom can be applied to solve future problems. We also know it's working because we happen to have a Rhodes Scholar out of the class of 21, but not just one Rhodes Scholar. We sent 200 cadets from the class of 21 off to grad school. We normally send a little over 10%, but last year we talked with the Air Force and the Space Force, especially the Air Force, and we said, some of our cadets are going to pilot training, and they're not going to actually step foot on a runway for over a year. Could we partner with AFIT, the Air Force Institute of Technology, and send more of our cadets to go get a master's degree while they're waiting to step into a jet? And the Air Force said, absolutely. So we sent over 20% of that class off to grad school, and they're doing phenomenally well. I could go on and brag about what our cadets and our faculty are doing, but at the end of the day, they are laser focused on what that future is going to look like, and they're also keenly aware of what it takes to make our mission work, not just last year, but this academic year as well in light of COVID. And you heard the boss talk a little bit about that pandemic math team. I can tell you that it wasn't just helping our USAFA. The work that our pandemic math team and our laboratories in partnership with our med group did last year set the tone for the entire Department of Defense. And the research that was done here has enabled us to be better and to be better warfighters. And so I'm pretty darn proud, not only of what your cadets are doing in our classrooms and in our research, in our 27 different research laboratories, but more importantly about what they're going to do after they graduate. And I know that they are ready for the challenges that the Air Force and the Space Force have. And I look forward to your questions about more of our academics and what we're doing to help prepare them. But with that, the other place that we help to prepare our amazing cadets is down on the fields of friendly strife. So my teammate, Mr. Nate Pine, our athletic director. Nate.
Thank you, ma'am. Wow, we've covered a lot, and I am acutely aware that I'm the last speaker in line before your questions, so I will be brief, but want to give you a slight overview, and probably more for the parents than maybe the grads, because you understand the athletic mission at the Academy and how we contribute to developing leaders of character. But our athletic department is different than most other institutions, even though we compete against those institutions on the competitive fields in our varsity athletics. But our athletic department also oversees our physical instruction and our PE courses, some to include combatives and things unique to an academy that are different than other PE courses. But others are lifelong fitness. We also, on the fitness topic, oversee all fitness testing for the cadet wing and making sure that they're prepared when they graduate to move out into our Air Force and be physically fit for a life of service. And then the third piece, and probably the most visible, is our varsity teams. And we have 27 varsity teams, most of which compete in the Mountain West. So we have a lot of different branches to our athletic department. We've got a lot of different members, coaches, and staff that help facilitate this. And I get the good fortune of working with those folks and staying out of their way most of the time. But we had a great year, and so General Clark asked us to talk a little bit about COVID. And so we had a challenging year in that it was constantly changing. Our rules of engagement, how we handled COVID, how we handled mask wear, practice, contact, all of those things changed throughout the year. And that's one of the things that give me great pride about being at the Air Force Academy is our coaches, our staff, and our cadets were able to adapt to that, to adjust, and they were resilient. And the proof is in the pudding. We had one of our most successful year, our second best year ever competitively in Division I athletics. We were number 65 in the nation out of 320 plus Division I schools in the aggregate standings because of the success of our teams on the competitive field. We were able to do that through individual performance, team performance, and a lot of guts and hard work. On the individual performance side, a couple of brags to draw attention to. Mahala Norris won a national championship in the 3,000-meter steeplechase in the outdoor track and field. That's our first national championship in track and field since the 60s. We also had a third-place finisher in the 10,000-meter in Maria Mettler. We had 3 teams win conference championships. We had 3 coaches named Coaches of the Year, and we had 33 All-Americans recognized. So a tremendous year in spite of the challenges of COVID. Gives me a lot of confidence as we build into this year. A lot of those lessons that we learned last year are going into making our practices better, certainly safer, and we've learned a lot about testing, and we've learned a lot about vaccines that'll help set us up, and hopefully starting Saturday in the football stadium, we're gonna have fans back. We're gonna have a lot more fun this year than we had last year, and hopefully we're gonna raise the bar competitively. So with that, I'll sit down, we'll open it up to questions, and we can cover our bases in any of our areas. But thank you for being here.
So you can You hear me? Okay, yeah. You can see why we're having the success that we do, because we have a team of phenomenal leaders. Here, we have some of our leaders in the back and right here on the front row. But I am immensely proud to be a part of this team. And right now, we are ready to answer any questions that you have about anything, because we know that you guys are going to take this back with you and be able to talk to your teams, your parents' clubs, your AOG groups about these issues. So fire away.
Terry Williams, Nebraska Parents Club. This is for the dean. Thought long and hard about this, but the big question is internships versus summer research and the process for corporations and or military units to request cadets. How do they go through that?
That's a great question, Terry. First, we have a range of research and internship programs. Some are run through the Dean of Faculty and our Cadet Summer Research Program. And how those opportunities come up is that within each academic discipline, we partner with a variety of organizations. Some are military organizations. So for example, we sent a couple of cadets to the NRO this last summer. Some are corporations. So we've sent cadets to Apple and Amazon and everywhere in between. We also have and have partnered with the Cadet Wing and the Commandant on more internship opportunities, so less aligned, for example, with their academic discipline and more aligned with a leadership aspect or something that they're just passionate about doing that may not necessarily align with their academic major. And so we're continuing to identify what's the kind of the right number of cadets, especially because next summer we anticipate getting back to Ops Air Force and sending our cadets out across operational bases, and then seeing what is that right mix between cadet summer research programs that are aligned to their academic discipline, internships or experiences that are aligned more with the cadet wing. What I would say is that if a particular military organization, or really any organization, your companies, your universities of which you are a part of, if you know of good opportunities for our cadets, two ways. Tell a cadet, but then tell the cadet to come talk to us, because we have interesting cadets who have wound up in senators' staffs, and also they are enterprising young men and women, let me tell you. But also to make things a little more longer lasting, reach out to our department heads, to our commandant shop, to enable kind of those longer lasting partnerships so we can work through and fine tune what are those opportunities and what are the best use of what is the most precious commodity around here, which is cadet time. So thank you.
I have 3 questions, but they're quick. Number 1, when's the chapel going to be done? Number 2, that's most important. Number 2, I wanted to ask the athletic director about Mahala Norris and she was amazing, and you should put it on the website, her running past, kind of tripping and running past. It should go in a loop, because that's the Air Force Academy. But what types of opportunities do athletes like her have for competing in the Olympics? Because I just think she's amazing. And the third question is the summer ops. Is there any way that you can let people know, like Kirkland Air Force Base, there were several cadets there, and the only reason we knew is because we had an event at the museum, Nuclear Museum, and they were there, and they actually helped with our event, and we couldn't have done it without them. Is there any way that you could let people know, I know there's privacy, but that there's some cadets in town so we can host them for dinners, or they can get out and talk to people? Thanks.
Colonel Leonard, do you want to lead off on the chapel?
I'll take the first. Well, I'll take the first one, and then I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Leonard, who is our Air Base Wing Commander, to kind of clean up whatever I say. But this is a this is a difficult one, the chapel. So I'll take that one, then Nate, and then I think the third one our Commandant will take. So on the chapel, it was supposed to be done, and you guys can see it. I call it Chap in the Box, and it is there, and I get to look at it every day from my office. It's like right there. And the project was scheduled to be complete in 2013, 4-year project from 19 to 13. The big issue, though, that we have run into that is going to extend it, and we don't know exactly how long it will be extended right now, but it will be several months, if not a couple years, asbestos. And as we started into the project, we started uncovering, and back in the day that it was built, asbestos was used in ways that we would never do it now, but as we uncover it, it has to be contained to protect our environment and to protect the people that are working in the building in a very specific way. And the further we get into the project, the more we realize that they basically dipped the chapel in asbestos and then put it out. And so we are, and this is something that we're all very disappointed in, but our team is working really, really hard to get those timelines down as best we can, because it's not only time, but it's money and it's effort, and it's also prestige for our academy. We want it back. But the city of Colorado, the state, our air staff are working extremely closely with us to move that timeline as fast as we can. So it's going to be some time. We'll announce when we have a really good feel for what that's going to do, but I will tell you it's going to be months, if not a year or two longer than we hope. But we'll get the final details here soon, we hope. Chris, anything to add to that?
First, the general never says anything wrong, so there's not a lot of cleanup here, but it just, history in the chapel was built in the early 60s, and to give you some perspective, there's like 34 miles worth of like window seam in there, so to try to put the perspective of the scope of work there. And the general's right, really the challenge is when it was built, every window was caulked, and there was no interior drainage, so it was built in 62. It started leaking in approximately 62. So we've been dealing with it since then. So this is really the long-term fix to go and give us actual drainage to get the chapel fixed. So, you know, this is a major engineering effort. The firm that's doing it has actually made a mock-up of the chapel at their site to figure out how to work the drainage, to put that in perspective. And there is asbestos we found underneath pretty much every window pane. We are currently employing about 20% of the asbestos workers in the entire state. So right now, as the general said, we are looking at the current schedule date is 2025. We are working to try to work a modification to that, but yes, it will not be in the near term, and it's terrible. Unfortunately for the cadets that just arrived up, they likely will not see the chapel complete in their time. Unfortunately, I will not either, and I've already told my successor when I meet him someday that he won't see it either. So yeah, it is a concerning problem, but we will get it done right this time, so therefore when it's done, we're not fixing leaks immediately afterwards. Thank you.
Ma'am, impressive work getting 3 questions in one. So luckily, I get to follow that one up with some positive news. So Michaela Norris, for those that haven't seen her race, her national championship, I encourage you to go to our website. It is archived. You can watch it. She referenced the stumble on the last hurdle with the water trap before she sprinted to the finish line. So to paint the picture, and you've got to see it for yourself, Michaela Norris is 4'10", and so that hurdle that she had to clear, the obstacle, is almost as tall as she is. So on that last one, she stumbled slightly, caught herself so she didn't go down, and then sprinted past 3 or 4 women who were quite a bit taller, had run a stronger race, but all guts down the last straightaway to win it with a sprinter's lean for the 3,000 meters. So an incredible race. I was at the race, standing up, jumping around, yelling in the coaches area, which you're not supposed to do, but that's okay. It was that exciting. It was worth taking all the dirty looks, and it was a fantastic experience, and couldn't have been more proud of her and our track program and everyone that she represents in it. And she followed up, I had mentioned Maria Metler had taken 3rd place in a 10,000. And so both of those are distance racers, and Michaela especially had an incredible senior year. She had raced in cross country, took 4th in the nation in the cross country championships. She had raced in the indoors and taken 4th place. And so for her to get over the top and win a national title in the steeple race was quite incredible. Just by note, the steeplechase she had only run in her senior year. So it wasn't an event that she had worked on throughout her cadet career. So pretty incredible. Now to your question. How does she potentially make the Olympic team? And it works very well for women's distance runners especially. So we have what is called a world-class athlete program. And generally, women's distance runners become better with age. And there's a tipping point there, but their opportunity to make an Olympic team actually happens later in their 20s, close to 30 years old in their sport. And so she will be part of what is called a world-class athlete program. That happens within 2 years of an Olympic Games. So she commissioned into the Space Force. She is going out and starting her career in the Space Force. And then at the 2-year mark, before the next Summer Olympics, she is going to train full-time as part of our world-class athlete program to make the Olympic team. Now, luckily for her and Maria and a few of our other women's distance runners, they potentially have an opportunity at 2 or 3 Olympics in their career. And they'll only train for those Olympics while serving active duty in the Air Force for 2 years before them. If they don't make the national team, they go right back in and continue with their Air Force or Space Force career. If they do, they'll run in the Olympics and then rejoin the force thereafter. So the world-class athlete program works for all of our Olympic sports. It's different than the pro option that we currently have. There's a few young men chasing their dream of playing in the NFL. That's a different program because we don't have an Olympic sport equivalent like we do with the world-class athlete program. So just a little bit of context there. Thank you.
I think the short answer is I'm pretty sure we can do that. So it won't be names, birth dates, social security, and cell phone numbers, but I'm pretty sure that once we get our calendar and our schedule built for next summer's Ops Air Force to include locations in each period and rough number of cadets, we can post that on a portal and you can access it along with contact information for the base that they're going to. So we've got that written down and we'll take a look at it for next summer.
Paulita Hendrickson, class of '85 from the AOG in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I'm actually following up on Darla's question. She's my partner from the Parents Club. We don't get a list of cadets for summer programs. We've never had, and it's the one question I ask every time we come, because our AOG chapter likes to celebrate with them. We bring them over to houses, let them play games, we take them ballooning, we throw barbecues for them if we can find them. But we have to literally go to the lab and talk to somebody at the lab who might know if the cadets are there. We never know when they're coming because of privacy restrictions. But we're thinking if you're able to get us those numbers and a point of contact at the base, then these cadets are going to get an amazing experience, but only if we can find them.
We will get on that, but what I'll tell you is I'm going to go with them so that I can experience that. I just want to make sure that I get to, make sure that we're all up and up in that. So I'll be there, and you'll have my name. In fact, I'll give it to you when we leave, and we can get that. Thank you for that.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for the opening comments. I'm Forrest Underwood. I'm probably the most recent grad by a decade, I think. Class of 2009, and I'm also the San Diego AOG chapter president. We launched an initiative in the last couple of years to get more young alums to participate in the graduate community. And I really appreciate what the Commandant, the Dean, and the athletic department are doing to create data-driven decisions. That's something we think about a lot. How are we measuring the effectiveness of the work that's being done here at the Academy? And in the context of young alums, I'd like to understand your perspective on how you're measuring the success of the preparation that's done here at the Academy once the graduates go out into the force, and how that's being translated back and informing the approach. I'd love to get your perspective on that. Thank you.
Great question. Assessment is hard. And we work hard at getting better at assessment. One of the things that we conducted over the course of this summer, so we have 9 institutional outcomes. And these are not the athletic director's outcomes, they're not the dean's outcomes, they're not the comms outcomes, they're really the SOUP's outcomes, right? It's all of our outcomes of what we're trying to produce. And we recently did a look at how are we doing on those outcomes. And part of that is not just how our cadets are doing here, but also doing longitudinal studies to both our supervisors of graduates as well as the graduates themselves. And that is led, I'm watching my A39 head go north-south. He's going to get me if I misspeak, but they lead a longitudinal effort to help us with respect to, it's called an institutional what's the E? Effectiveness Board, the EIB, that helps us to understand how we're doing and where we need to make adjustments. It's an ongoing effort, but we're committed to knowing how our grads are doing in order to then pull that back into the force. So some of it's data-driven, some of it's qualitative, right? Where we reach out and just have conversations with supervisors and with cadets, with graduates. How prepared were you? Where do we need to focus? And so it's a constant. It's definitely a constant loop. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Christy Keating from Ohio. I have a 2021 grad, and I have a 2023 gonna be grad from here also. My question is a little more general. I want to just ask you about morale. With it being such a challenging year last year, how do you feel the morale is now? How do you feel, what things are you going to do to help build morale? I can say even my sons did well last year, even though one of them lived in a hotel and everything. But I know that there's still some people kind of reeling from the problems of last year. So it's just more of a general question of where you think we are now and how we're going to get to where we need to be.
Great question, and I will caveat this up front by saying that I can say what I think the right answer is, but as the Commandant, you can probably imagine that every cadet has a smile on their face if they walk by you on the terrazzo, so I think they're doing great. That being said, I typically try to get the information from communication with my chain of command, either the active duty permanent party or the cadets. And I will also say that the feedback that I have received thus far is the cadets are in a really good place. Morale has taken a huge turn for the better as we came out of the darkness of COVID and the sun is rising over the horizon, and we've got great momentum moving forward, not just with the freshman class, but all three classes. And one of the things that I'm very focused on is putting as much responsibility and authority into the cadet wing as I'm comfortable doing. Because it's important for me to give them opportunities to lead and follow together instead of being forced to lead or follow by permanent party. Now my permanent party, my group commanders, my AOCs, and my AMTs provide a lot of oversight and monitoring, but I think that one of the things that the cadets have been yearning for that has been absent over the last year and a half is personal interaction in being able to lead the underclass or being able to be led by the upper class. So we've got some good things on the horizon. I've already pushed as many things as I can down to the cadets to have them own it, have them embrace it, have them internalize it, and have them run it. And then we'll be there if things go awry, which they have not yet. So I've seen a lot of the cadets that have embraced this. They're happy. They know that we're going in a really good direction. We just got to make sure we don't mess anything up as we're getting to where we want to go. And I don't get the sense that that's going to happen. The feedback and the response, at least from my level, has been really good. And I'll defer to any of my group commanders or cadet wing leadership in the back if they have any specifics to add. But I think the cadets are ready to get out of this. They know that they went through a lot, but they're bonding together as cadets, as classes, and as a cadet wing, and they're in a good spot. But that's the humble observation as the old Commandant. So that's the one caveat. So if any of my group commanders have anything else to add from the back, feel free. And they're running to get there.
Hi, Mike Elson, class of 76 from Sacramento. My question is about COVID. With a recent directive from the Secretary of the Defense that everybody in the military be vaccinated against COVID, my question for the group is, do you require that for cadets coming to the academy? What are you going to do about the 3%, which is 3 or 4 per squadron, which is a lot? And the final question is there cadet peer pressure to go get vaccinated?
And then I'll turn it over to the Commandant because between he and our medical group, they have really been working the vaccination issue. But where we are now, I'll sort of give you the phases of this. We got to the 86, soon to be about 92% of the cadets strictly through just education and motivation from their leadership, their group commanders, their AMTs, their AOCs, their commandant, and that's where we took the biggest jump, and that's what really got us into a good place. And I think a lot of it was also they lived through a tough year last year, and they don't want to live through that again. And they realized that the vaccination was really our way out of that. Now, you hit on a great point because there's those last few that we've been working on. The Commandant and the team have done a great job continuing to educate, and I think that's what's going to get us to about the mid-90%. But then when now the SecDef has mandated that service members will get the vaccine, where we are with this right now is we're waiting for service guidance on that so that we understand exactly how to implement and what the implications are if people don't get it. The Commandant has given basically 3 different points, and I don't mean to speak for you, Max, but I thought this was an amazing approach. He told them all to take a trip to the pod, and which is the point of distribution for the vaccine. And they had 3 questions to answer before they went. Yes, I want to get the vaccine. No, I don't want to get the vaccine because of religious or medical issues, or I just don't want to get the vaccine. But they had to deliberately answer that question so that it wasn't just, I don't feel like going to going to get my shot or whatever, but they actually thought through it and had their own reason for doing that. So we are still in a voluntary status, but very soon when we get service guidance, it's going to be just like any other vaccine. And all of you have been in the military, I mean, anthrax and all those other things. This is going to be in the line of that. And it's going to help us, frankly, to get better so that we can continue with our mission. But I really appreciate the way the Commandant in particular, our medical group, and our Air Base Wing have handled this. And our whole team, the Dean talked about all the work that they have done to help us think about this from a data-driven perspective. But those last few percent, I think to get directly to your question, are going to come through mandate from the Department of Defense with service guidance so that we are in line with all the rest of the Air Force and the Space Force. Anything to add there?
Just a couple of quick points, not much more to add, sir. So all of the cadets and the permanent party are aware that the vaccine is mandatory, but as of right now, getting the vaccine is still voluntary. When the service policy comes down, which we're anticipating in a week or 2 from the Department of the Air Force, that will change, and then those that are not vaccinated will be given a direct order from me to go get the vaccine. And then they'll either start the religious accommodation or the medical waiver process, which is run by the med group and the chaplains, and eventually submit it up the chain of command for either approval or denial. Or if they're not going to submit a waiver, then they're going to face disciplinary or punitive actions. And I don't know what those look like because we haven't received the guidance from the Department of the Air Force. And to your last question about what next summer might look like for the class of 2026 coming in, I fully anticipate that it'll be, it'll still be mandatory. And by then, I would guess, and we haven't issued a policy yet, that if they show up and they cannot provide proof of vaccination, they're going to be required to get the shot on I-Day, or they're going to get turned around. But that is a draft policy.
And just to give a little context to that, in the athletics world, while we're figuring these things out on the new mandate, to compete in Division I athletics, the NCAA requires that we test non-vaccinated or not fully vaccinated 2 weeks post, once a week. So we're administering PCR tests for those individuals so that we can move forward with our practice safely, and also so that we can compete when those competitions come up against other institutions that are doing the exact same thing. So we're in line with that, and then obviously we'll adjust as that vaccine mandate rolls out.
And on the research side of the house, what's been fascinating is because we're continuing to collect that data. Those unvaccinated cadets have a 25-fold higher likelihood of getting COVID than if they had the vaccine. And so we are using that data to continue to educate our cadets and our faculty about why the vaccine works and why it's good for all of us in order to continue our mission.
Hi, I'm with the Washington National Capital Chapter with my husband. He's a grad of 78. I just was going to piggyback. I like the we are winning, we haven't won on the COVID-19. And I was not going to ever get a shot, never. I don't get flu shots, nothing, but I did. And now we're to the booster side. And now I'm being told, okay, you need to do boosters. And my son took his shot even before I took my shot. And so is this going to be a volunteer? Is this going to be, he can just say, hey, it's been 6 months, it's been 8 months, I want to do my booster. I love the 97%, but to win it, the booster is the next. And I would just like to know if they're going to be, is there options for those that took theirs when they took it to go ahead and do a booster?
I'll take that one real quick. So first, in terms of a third shot booster, we're only doing that right now for folks that have some kind of medical reason for it. So relatively, particularly limited amongst the cadets, but amongst permanent party, we have given a few third shots for folks that have a medical reason for it. The policy on the third shot beyond that, we do not have in our force policy yet, so we are not administering any third shots just as part of a third part of the dosing regimen. Does that answer your question? Thank you, ma'am.
David Gibbs, Las Vegas AOG, class of 79. Two quick questions, if I may. Number one is lessons learned, or what do you guys, if you guys are taking, working with the cadets as a result of what happened with the honor system recently at Annapolis, or the honor incident recently in Annapolis. And the second one is, in my chapter in Las Vegas, and I've talked to some other chapter presidents around the country who live near bases, and one of our issues is involvement with active duty. Getting the active duty folks involved, and sad to say, especially the leadership. Is there something that you guys can apply from, the little 3-star level push, reaching out to some of the leadership at some of the bases, asking them to get involved in the AOG chapters around the country, or, even around the world?
Thank you, sir, for that. So we went through a pretty extensive honor review after the incident happened back in 2020. We had cadets involved. We had a few of our grads, prominent grads, 3 stars, General Kelly, General Gould was involved initially, General Lorenz was involved initially, as well as General Chris Miller. We had faculty, we had staff, we had coaches from across USAFA to come together to really discuss this, and we did what we call a design sprint, which is basically to look at our honor situation and bring together every thought that we have from what we know about what happened in that incident, but also what we know about our honor process traditionally and how we could make it better. And they came with a multitude of different recommendations, and a lot of them were very good. But to help us cull that down, we had an implementation team formed that was a smaller group of people to include all the leadership here, but also our cadet honor leadership, which was very important to us because this is a cadet honor code, as well as some more alumni, to really help us to determine how do we implement and which of the ideas need to be implemented and how do we do it. And to give you sort of the I would say a broader brush of what we came up with, there was basically 3 different recommendations that we came with. The first one we needed to do was to involve our staff and faculty more deeply into the honor process so that it wasn't, though it's a cadet-run system, it had the full brunt of the entirety of USAFA behind it, and that the cadets knew it, and that our staff and faculty were engaged with them to help them through some of the difficult challenges that you can imagine went along with this. So more staff and faculty involvement. The second was the development of our 4-degree cadets. Now, coming into USAFA, you can imagine we get people from across the country, right? Society is a bit different now than it was before. And I want to be delicate with this, but people come in with different frames of reference of what integrity really is. And we get people from every spectrum, across the spectrum of integrity, I would say. What we have to do is meet them where they are and help them from day one that they come in to get that foundation of honor so that they're ready to live that way at the academy. And the dean, the commandant, and the AD have all, first they've encouraged and I would say prepared their staff and faculty to engage with our cadets at another level. They already were engaged, but now we've bumped that up. The commandant has made room in basic cadet training and throughout the rest of the school year to help develop those 4 degrees, the class of 25, to build that foundation more deeply. One of the things that we heard in our honor design sprint was we focus a lot on cadets when they violate the honor code, mentorship, journaling, a lot of different activities that they do to help to build and remediate. Some of them said, why don't I get that before I violate? Why can't I have that mentorship and that journaling opportunity and opportunities to think about this and engagement with staff, faculty, and upper class cadets? So we pulled some of that forward so that they're getting it regardless of where they're coming from and what issues they might have with the honor system. So that's been significant. We're in the early stages of that, but initial, I think, response is that this is a good thing. And then the last thing that we needed to do was really get a recommitment from the upper class, a recommitment of the honor code because they own it. And they have to commit if the development that we're providing to the 4 degrees is going to really result in a culture change, it has to be owned by the upper class. And so we've started with a recommitment right at the beginning of the year. We've had many discussions between all of us to ensure that we are beginning real culture change. So this isn't going to be a quick turn, but I think it's going to be a process that is going to really bear some great fruit for us over the years. And I'm very hopeful. So just to recap on those, it's greater staff and faculty involvement, it's development of our 4 degrees from the day they walk in the door, and it's a recommitment from our upperclassmen. And those are sort of the 3 lines of effort that we're taking to help push us to the next level as far as honor goes. Now, here's a really interesting point, and this is not out yet, but I will tell you because we're going to be reaching out. And you talked about active duty involvement. When we talked about mentors, before we had special program ethics advisors in the squadron, and they were grads in the local community that helped us to mentor some of our cadets when they had stumbles in the honor program. Well, we want to provide mentors across the board. Not only right now it's to our 1,000 4-degree cadets, but eventually this might expand. But we don't have the staff and the faculty to mentor all of those cadets. But we're going to start looking to our active duty to be active duty grads to be those mentors. And we're working with the AOG right now to help pull them in. We are constantly having active duty grads come back and go, how can I help? How can I be involved? Well, this is an opportunity for us. And so we're looking hard at that to do, I think, what you're asking. How do we pull those grads back to the academy to help us to do the things that we need to do? Number one thing is developing leaders of character, and if they can help us with that, that's a big win. So those are just some of the things that came out of our honor review and efforts that we're putting into place right now, but we are in the throes of this. We just came out of this at the beginning, or started implementing this at the beginning of this school year, but we're very comfortable and positive about where it's going to take us. Did I answer your second question about the grads?
Part of it, the big factor is, for example, out in Las Vegas, you know, we've approached the senior leadership at the base, and it's hard to get responses. It's hard to get them to come into some of our events, and I've heard the similar concern from some of the other chapter presidents, like I said, who live near military bases. Is there something that the academy leadership can or would be interested in doing, reaching out to the leadership, saying, hey, we need, we're looking for you guys to support your AOG chapters, and get them involved in, cynically speaking, for lack of a better phrase, where the colonels go, the captains go. And we'd like to grow our chapter and others as well, have the same goal. And there are hundreds and hundreds of grads out in the Las Vegas, active duty grads in the Las Vegas area. We'd love to get more of them involved and if we get the colonels and the generals at Creech and Nellis involved, I'm sure we can get some of the other folks involved too and start working in that direction.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think what we need to do is partner with the AOG to really help us to energize that. And that's something we'll take note on to see if we can maybe get some more energy behind that and get grads, because I mean, I've said it before, the strength of our AOG chapters is really the strength of our academy. So that's one we'll take to see if we can get some power behind that one. Thank you.
Good morning. Ruben Martinez, San Diego. Thanks for being here and being willing to answer our questions. The class of 23 and 22, like most kids all over the world, they missed out on great things during COVID. They missed out on activities, and I know we have great summer stuff going on. I know a lot of our cadets didn't get to do that. What efforts have been made by the academy to remediate that, to give them those opportunities they missed, or are they gone? Has that ship sailed? Sink Navy. So I just would like to know what has been done, will be done, or won't be done to remediate that. Thank you.
I'll take the first hack at that. From a military training and education standpoint, you are correct. There are experiences that 22, 23, and 24 were not exposed to in the last year and a half. Some of them are gone, never, I think, unfortunately, never to come back. There's only so much time in order to try and get back to getting them experiences they missed. You'd have to take something else. It's a zero-sum game with their training. That being said, the class of 2024 told me that they missed being gassed in basic training, so I'm actually going to bring them down next summer and put their whole class through the gas. So at least one of them told me they wanted to do it, and I'm like, okay, come one, come all. So I'm still thinking about that one. I think 24 might be making a run through the drop your mask and cry for half an hour. And specifically on 2024, they missed out on what I would call a normal 4-degree year. Not their fault. We were forced to do that based on everything y'all are tracking. But the challenge with that is that now 2024 is responsible in part for training 2025 in a way that they never went through. So 2025's freshman year is extraordinarily different than the one that 24 went through. So I've asked 22 and 23 to deliberately train and develop 24 to make sure they have the skills and the abilities that they need to get the training right, even though they never went through it. I heard from a bunch of 24s when they're talking about what the freshmen are going through. They're like, "This is way harder than what we went through." I'm like, "Yes, it is, and that's a good thing." But the upper two classes are providing a lot of oversight to coaching, teaching, mentoring to make sure that 24 is set up for success to be the trainers that they need to be as sophomores and then eventually as juniors and as seniors. So that's just one example of how we're trying to play catch up from a leadership and a followership development standpoint. I don't know if there's some other examples from the deans, but like I said, unfortunately, there's just some things that it's like too bad, so sad. We can't go back and get it to you, but we'll do as best as we can in other areas.
I would also say that there's a lot of things that happened in last academic year that other classes have never had to experience. And so when I look at the silver linings, right, and especially in comparison, so last year I would remind cadets that you're having one of the most normal college experiences in the United States right now. Because at least half of, you're not in your parents' basement. You are going to at least half your classes in person. They even got to go to a couple of football games before we had to stop that as well. And so there were opportunities, and I think that reminding, and then there were opportunities that they would have never had absent a global pandemic. You know, we had upper class cadets who had to figure out how to take care of their 3 degrees and 4 degrees, who were still up here on the hill because they were in hotels. That's called remote ops. It's going to be a lifelong experience and a leadership opportunity that they had that none of the other classes had before them. They had to figure out how to redeploy multiple times, right, between the hotel and back, and to Q&I and back, and how to take care of their young cadets, their airmen, while they were in it. And so I guess I'm always a glass half full type of person, but I do believe that while different, our cadets over the last year and a half have had opportunities that, absent a global pandemic, they would have never had before.
I'll finish that one off, Ruben. We're going to sink Navy next weekend, Saturday, 3:30 on national television.
Hello. Hi, I'm Cynthia with the Central Florida Parents Club, and I have a proud First-D Chicken Hawk. And the question that I keep getting asked by my club is there an estimated timeline of when the Thanksgiving break will be? Last year was great. She spent it with her amazing sponsor family, and they took her skiing, and I know she would love to do that again, but we just want to know if she's coming home.
Yes, we do have an estimated, as of yesterday, in fact. So we will, so correct me if I'm wrong, team, but the date, we're going to go back to a normal Thanksgiving break. Yeah, so we did that because we wanted to walk out of this room alive today. So we said, hey, for our own health and safety, let's just do this. And especially when we talked to the 500 parents today, we knew that would have been a bloodbath if we didn't have it. So, but in all honesty, given our vaccination situation and our ability to actually send people out and bring them back, they will get, it's a 5-day Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
Exact dates?
They leave Tuesday after their last military duty, which is a class, and then they return on Sunday. So a normal Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, so they'll get a, oh, you look puzzled. Yeah, so they'll leave Tuesday afternoon after their last duty, and then they will be home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and back here on Sunday for academic call to quarters in the evening, which is what we've done traditionally every year for many years back. So basically, it's going to be a normal Thanksgiving break for what USAFA offers. And I think that's good for all of us. I mean, it's good for our staff and faculty as well. But I think, yeah, this will be a welcome relief to our cadets. Hadn't been announced yet, though, right? It's getting there. So, but you got it first, right here, right? So, I wanted to add one thing to what all these guys said, and it's in line with this too. Last year they didn't get this, right? They had to muscle through some pretty tough times. And yes, they didn't get the 4-degree training. They didn't get a lot of the opportunities. But I will tell you, when it comes to developing a leader, a character, going through a service academy in a global pandemic, I will tell you that their character development was every bit intact, if not more, than it has been with previous classes. They had to endure a lot to get through this because we did things that other universities didn't do. We had them living in cruise ship USAFA for that entire year. We had them wearing masks. We had them locked down in their rooms. We had them enduring things that other kids in other schools would have said, I'm not doing it, I'm going home. But they did it, and they did it well. So if we ever want to question the toughness and the grit of the cadets here, look back at last year. I saw what they did. We all saw what they did. They have the grit. They have the ability to step up during tough times. I mean, they complain, but all of you did too. So I don't want to hear that, all right? But they did it, and they did it well. So I am really proud of how they stepped up. And they may not have gotten some of that traditional character development. They got an extra dose of it because you heard of all the accomplishments that they did even with the pandemic. They did that out of grit and toughness and a desire to be here and to press through. So I just want to say that.
But some of them need to be reminded where the barbershop was.
Well, yeah. And where their razors were. They thought they were slick because they didn't shave because they had masks up. And it's like, come on, I can see it growing out the top, you know. So it's pretty funny.
Good morning, everyone. Jackie Charsagua Garcia, class of 1985. And I did get gassed, and it was definitely character development. I want to first of all thank you for this opportunity. I'm from the Space Coast, Melbourne, Florida, Patrick Space Force Base, as well as Cape Canaveral Space Force Base. And that takes some time to say that. I am just so overwhelmed at the staff, at the AOG who put this together. For my first opportunity as someone from the Space Coast to come here and represent the Space Coast. We don't have a president. We just have a bunch of folks who want to help the Air Force Academy and help cadets. But my question more goes towards the strategic direction that we're going now that we have a Space Force and we are actually having lieutenants commissioned into the Space Force. So what are you thinking? What is your perspective on how we prepare cadets both for the Air Force as well as for the Space Force?
Well, I didn't coin this, the superintendent did, but the United States Air Force Academy is the place for space. And so I say it every time I get, and I give them credit. It's called documentation statement, sir. So, so we have, first, we didn't wait for December of 2019 for the Space Force to be stood up. Actually, 2 months prior was when we had actually adopted our new space warfighting minor. We also, the year prior, had reinstituted our space operations academic major. Our space warfighting minor is actually aligned very directly with the career fields and career tracks within the Space Force. We graduate on average 96 Guardians every year, although last year we graduated 114 and the year before about 84, give or take. And so we work hand in hand. We have a new Space Force liaison, Cap Greenwood, you want to stand up? Who is our Space Force officer who is helping us to look across the curriculum. Not just in the academic spaces, but in our military training spaces, in our athletic spaces, about how do we weave Space Force Guardian principles throughout our course of instruction here, from summer opportunities to research opportunities to what they're doing in the classroom. I think many of you are familiar with our FalconSat program. We do space by learning, we learn space by doing space is their motto. So we build satellites, we launch satellites, and we fly satellites. Today, there will be 2 to 3 passes of an Air Force Academy built satellite that our cadets continue to monitor, correct. We are doing operational missions, some of which are actually classified for the United States Space Force here on the United States Air Force Academy. I could go on and on and on about how much we're doing in Space Force, but I'm going to hand it over because it's not just about what we're doing here, it's about how we're encouraging our future applicants to want to join Space Force. So, Art.
Thank you, ma'am. And ma'am, thank you for the question. Art Primus, Director of Admissions, and I see a few of the ALOs in the room also. Thank you for being here. I just want to add that we're also pushing that left as far as we can. We know there's a lot of outstanding, talented young men and women who are interested in the Space Force, who have those type of propensity, that the Department of the Air Force is looking at, and so we are incorporating, in cooperation with Colonel Greenwood up there, you will see on our admissions website more Space Force language, career opportunities, just to enlighten young men and women that, as the superintendent said, this is the place if you want to go into the Space Force. And many of you may know that we have lieutenants that graduate and are part of our recruiting force for a year. And this year we have 24 of them out in Air Force Recruiting Service squadrons around the nation. And with the great help of A1, we have 4 Guardians that graduated as Space Force grads who are part of that force. And one of them is actually out at the recruiting squadron out at Patrick. And so she's out there being able to talk about the Space Force opportunities at the academy and what she's looking forward to. And actually the commander of that squadron is a Space Force lieutenant colonel. So I think from an Air Force recruiting perspective and from a USAFA admissions perspective, we're trying to get that word out as far left as possible so young men and women know that this is the place to be if you want to be a Guardian in the future. Thank you.
Quick thing on that. A lot of times you ask us what you could do for us. One of the things that you heard, all of the things that the dean has talked about, our major, our minor, Astro, FalconSat. We have the Azimuth program that will help develop those Guardians before they go into the Space Force. We even have the Space Doctrine Center, the Space Force Doctrine Center is here at USAFA so that they can collaborate and work with us and our cadets on it. There is a lot going on here. What we need is a place to house it. We need a building that says, this is the place for space. This is the Space Forces Academy, and this is where everything space occurs and happens, and it is how we build our margin of excellence over everyone else so that we can always build the right kinds of officers to go out and lead that Space Force. So it's a building. It's only a building, but what goes in that building is going to be critical to our strategic direction as far as space goes and how we develop these Guardians for the future. So I wanted to put that out there, shameless plug, but it's something that we're working on right now and that I wanted to make you aware of. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenny Bowen from the Eastern North Carolina Parents Club. I have a firstie, which is very exciting. I want to thank you all for everything you've done during this COVID craziness. It's made those of us who have kids here very, very comfortable and appreciative. All the vaccine stuff being said, what is the extent to which y'all are testing still? Because that seemed to me to be one of the major factors in your being able to contain it as well as you did. Thank you.
So as far as the testing goes, and I'll let Mr. Pine answer from the NCAA standpoint, but right now the policy is that you only test those that are symptomatic. So from an active duty, permanent party, or a cadet standpoint, we only test those that are experiencing symptoms. We do not test the asymptomatic, whether they be vaccinated or unvaccinated. And that's based on the Department of the Air Force policy. It's different down in the athletic department based on NCAA rules, but we're expecting potentially in the next few weeks that we might actually see a policy where we have the flexibility to proactively test the unvaccinated population, even if they are asymptomatic, but that is pre-decisional and still in the works.
And on the athletic side, in order to compete, and all of our teams are now either in their non-competitive or competitive season, so when they're in this testing protocol, we are testing everyone either once a week with the PCR test, and that has to be within 72 hours of a competition, or we are testing them 3 times with a rapid antigen test. So we have testing capabilities, and that's happening for a quarter of our cadet population here, about 1,000 cadet athletes. So just to give you some perspective.
Just one quick caveat on the topic of Thanksgiving. It is likely that we will require a test for all cadets upon return, or well, probably upon return, not prior to return. And then we're still figuring out exactly what the policy is going to look like inside of the cadet wing for the unvaccinated population. There is a chance, based on the national situation and the local situation with regards to COVID prevalence, that we may require a ROM period, restriction of movement, or Q&I period for the unvaccinated population, just out of an abundance of caution to make sure that they don't bring something back into the cadet wing and put us in a bad spot trying to get through the rest of the semester and into the Christmas holidays. But that is more to follow on that.
Time for one more question.
Hi, John Pistrowski here, National Capital Area President, 78 grad. The question I have as it pertains more to firsties than anybody else, and that is we've seen a lot of dynamics here with regard to the Constitution, what it means, and specifically as it pertains to the oath of office. What are we doing for the firsties this year and all future cadets with regard to a good, accurate definition of what that oath of office means with regard to support and defending the Constitution?
Actually, so glad you asked that. We have an amazing distinguished visiting professor who also was a grad, and she has taken on over the last year with cadets, with firsties, they're calling it the Oath Project. And they are looking at ways, and we're not waiting until they're firsties for them to understand what their oath of office means, the importance of our Constitution, and what it means to support and defend. We actually started on I-Day. We had firsties, along with some of our faculty, who greeted every member of the class of 25. And before they raised their hand to take their first oath of office, we talked to them about the linkage between the oath of office and the profession of arms. We then do that at key moments in time over the course of their 47 months here, and I know the Commandant probably has some additional things that they're doing within the training and so forth. But even within our curriculum, we have key core classes that we talk about what the oath means, what we talk about what the Constitution means, and why we as members of the profession of arms are raising our right hand to that. If you come back, and how many of you have firsties? When you come back at your commissioning events, you're going to hear language that is new. We started it last year with the class of 21 that talks a little bit about what this oath means and what it means to support and defend the Constitution. I am so proud of that group. It was a collaboration of both our faculty and our cadets because they wanted to make sure that we were continuing to focus on that oath of office and how it's going to sustain them throughout their time in the Air Force and Space Force. Thanks for the question.
The last question, but I just want to say first, thanks to all of our team for being here. If you look into the back row, you'll see all of them, and then on the front row here, but also my wingmen here on the stage. I want to thank them for being here, but I also want to thank them for what they do. You know, I've been in the Air Force for a long time, and I've seen a lot of incredible groups, but not many as talented and as committed and dedicated to our mission as who we have here. And you can take that to the bank. And you can be proud of what they're doing with your cadets, with our cadets, to get them ready to go out and fight and to take that oath to support and defend our Constitution. Our country is in good hands thanks to them. So thank you for what you do to support our mission and to ensure that we have not only the things that we need, but also that there are people out there that can talk about what we're doing. So that ground truth is out because people love the Academy. They love our Academy. We're happy for that. But we want them to understand what's going on here. So thank you for carrying the mail for us. Thanks for being here. And we hope to see you around over the next weekend. Beat Lafayette.